It's 2024 and NVIDIA has become the architect of AI revolution. Their GPUs aren't just chips anymore. They are the modern equivalent of a money printer for every tech giant building their AI empire. Each H100 card is worth more than a Tesla, and Jensen Huang might as well be minting gold in silicon form. While investors throw more money at NVIDIA to build chips, the solution to our computing needs might not be more chips, but the one sitting in our pockets and our desks already. Today, we are about to witness one of those rare moments when the tech world flips itself upside down. Like when Netflix made cinema halls less relevant overnight, or when Uber turned every car into a potential taxi. Only this time, it's about computing power, and revolution isn't coming from some fancy new chip or quantum computer. It's coming from your junk drawer. Now, this video is for people who keep hearing about NVIDIA's massive success but have no idea what to make of it. The investors who want to stay ahead of Wall Street in finding the next big opportunity. Over the next few minutes, I will show you something fascinating. How millions of forgotten devices might just reshape the future of computing. You know, guys, your friends might be there for you, but can they actually help you build your wealth? You ask them for advice and suddenly it's, yeah, thanks for that. You know why I'm a little different than your regular friend? I am a crypto concierge. No, you do not need to go into the dark web or Reddit or Twitter threads to understand stuff like staking, sharding, liquidity pools. As a crypto concierge, I'll help you get onboarded onto crypto without any jargon or hassle. No guessing, no FOMO, no induced mistakes, just solid insights tailored to you. With your crypto journey, whether you're a fashionista, a hippie, over smart, germaphobe, or perpetually sarcastic, I'll be there for you. Click on the link, book a call, and let's make this simple. Because you deserve better than bad advice disguised as friendships. You deserve a concierge. Well, in this video, we look at the reason why NVIDIA's chips cost more than Tesla and why that's a huge problem. How the solution of our AI computing crisis might already be in our homes, and how you can turn your old devices into gold mine using DePIN, and why this matters to you even if you do not care about tech. You could say that the death of computing monopolies won't come from a bigger, better chip maker, but millions of smaller ones working together. Welcome to DePIN, where David just doesn't beat Goliath, David becomes Goliath. Let's talk about how NVIDIA became tech's biggest success story overnight. Think about every other AI breakthrough we've heard about lately. ChatGPT, Midjourney, Runway, all of them. Behind the scenes, they are all running on NVIDIA chips. And we're not talking about a couple of chips here. We're talking about thousands of GPUs working together just to train one of these models. But here's what's fascinating. NVIDIA didn't start out as an AI company. They've been around the block since 1993, quietly building their empire. First, they were the kings of gaming graphics. Then came the crypto boom, and suddenly everyone wanted their GPUs for mining Bitcoin. Remember when NFTs exploded? They were there too. But those were just warm-up packs. The real show started with AI. Right now, every tech giant is desperately trying to get their hands on NVIDIA chips. The numbers are mind-blowing. Google ordered 400,000 of these new GPUs. Microsoft, they want 60,000. And Meta, they're asking for around 360,000. And we are talking about billions of dollars in orders. Just last quarter, NVIDIA made $35 billion in revenue. That's up 94% from last year. And they've even overtaken Apple to become the world's most valuable tech company. But here's where things get tricky. Unlike software, you can't just press a button and make more chips out of thin air. Each GPU needs raw materials, specialized factories, and precise manufacturing. It's like trying to scale up a luxury car business overnight. It just doesn't happen. Meanwhile, AI isn't waiting around. The demand for computing power is growing faster than anyone predicted. And that's creating some serious pressure points in the NVIDIA empire. Think about it. When everyone in the world depends on one company for the brain behind AI, that's what's happening right now. And NVIDIA can't seem to keep up. And NVIDIA is riding so high. What's the catch? Let me tell you about the chaos behind their dominance. Look, NVIDIA's success is undeniable. That's clear. But even the strongest players have their weak spots. And behind those impressive earnings and glowing headlines, there are some cracks that just cannot be ignored. Want to know the one major challenge that even NVIDIA's massive war chest of money cannot solve? Supply shortages. Now, hear me out. Remember the global chip shortage after COVID? NVIDIA took that hit hard, like really hard. As a supplier, they felt it more than anyone. The demand for the GPUs went through the roof, but the manufacturing just couldn't keep pace with it. And here's something wild right now. If you want their flagship GPUs like the H100, you're looking at a 4 to 6 month waiting period. Think about that. Some of the biggest companies in the world are sitting around for half a year waiting for those chips. Let me break that down for you. Why this is a massive headache. Companies don't just need one GPU to run their platform, they need tons of them. Let's say you're building a basic image generation AI model. You're looking at needing minimum 4 to 8 GPUs. But if you're trying to build something like ChatGPT, you need at least 10,000 of these high-end GPUs. If you're a bootstrap startup needing just 10 GPUs, you're looking at a $400,000 cost upfront without writing a single line of code. And that's assuming that you still have several months while NVIDIA figures out how to manufacture these chips in real time for you. The situation has got pretty absurd. The tech giants are hoarding these chips like they are gold bars in a vault. Google, Meta, and Microsoft just ordered enough GPUs to fill a small city. But here's the problem: NVIDIA can only make about 50,000 of these every quarter. Do the math. It just doesn't add up. The amount of orders they're sitting on versus how much they can manufacture. So, what's really happening? Everyone's stuck waiting. And I mean, everyone. Doesn't matter if you're a startup with millions in funding or just a clever developer with a great idea. You're looking at a 6 month waiting list. And that's like really massive in the startup world. For smaller companies and developers, this is more than just a headache. It's a potential death sentence. How are you supposed to compete when you need $400,000 in hardware just to test your idea? It's like telling a chef they need to buy an entire farm before they can open up a restaurant. This is exactly where shared ledgers using blockchain come in, giving the birth to DePIN or Decentralized Physical Infrastructure. Imagine you're starting your own company, completely bootstrapped, with your personal savings. Who does not have the capital to pay this kind of money upfront? With DePIN, you could access the exact amount of GPU in computing power you need without having to spend $400,000 or $40,000 per GPU in upfront cost. And you can get this resource anytime you need it without any waiting queue. It's similar to how we pay our electricity bills. You don't have to go and buy the entire power plant at once. You pay for what you consume. It's as simple as that. Right now, NVIDIA centralizes the supply of this hardware. No matter how big your company is, you are at their mercy. Their global AI chip market share has crossed 90% this year. Think about what that means. NVIDIA essentially gets to decide who builds on AI and who doesn't. Let me help you with a different perspective. Remember Facebook back in 2000s? Everyone saw it as a great innovation, the company that was connecting the world. But over the last decade, that sentiment has completely flipped. Now that Meta controls Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, people see its control over social media as a threat to democracy. Because one company single handedly decide what billions of people across the world are allowed to see and not. In fact, just an hour ago, before we started shooting this video, all of Meta platforms crashed because of some technical issue affecting nearly 3 billion people on the planet. And this isn't the first time this has happened, nor will it be the last. When people start to realize that NVIDIA has the same level of control over AI, they'll move away from cheering the stock price to acknowledging it as the AI gatekeeper it has become. We need physical infrastructure like computing power to become decentralized. Deepins aren't just saving costs for companies, they are essentially redistributing power back to the people. There are millions of GPUs all around the world as of today, just catching dust. By tapping into this unused power, they're making this entire process sustainable and removing the exclusivity from big tech companies, making it accessible to even a single developer building a product right from their home. Let me break this down with a real example. Meet Rahul, a college student. He's got a laptop with 8 GB RAM, pretty standard stuff. He uses it for assignments and watching Netflix. But for about 20 hours a day, that laptop is just sitting there, barely using its power. With DePIN projects, Rahul can provide his laptop's computing power while he's not using it heavily and making some passive income. Pretty cool, right? But it's not just about laptops. Think about phones. We're living in a generation where people upgrade their phones every few years to get the next big thing. What happens to the old phones? They either end up in trash or get lost in your cupboard for years. With Deepin, you can share your old phone's computing power to help run AI programs and actually make money from hardware you've already written off. Even your home's Wi Fi can get on this action. Most broadcasting services provide over 200 GB to unlimited data every month. When you're at work, attending classes, or just sleeping, that internet bandwidth is mostly sitting idle. You can share this unused data with people who actually need it and once again make money while you do it. Is solving multiple problems at once, making tech more sustainable, making computing power cost effective for startups and small companies, and letting you make the most out of your devices. While Nvidia is trying to manufacture new chips as fast as they can, it's never going to be good enough. We've already seen a huge gap between supply and demand. But here's what makes Deepin different. It doesn't need a waitlist or a big purchase order to get started. It takes all that existing computing power that's just sitting around and distributes it to companies and developers who need it in a matter of minutes. And the best part, this isn't about some exclusive club just for people with mining rigs or high end GPUs. Literally anybody with a device can participate and make passive income while helping reduce costs for bootstrap companies that need this computing power very desperately. Let me give you another real world example of what Deepin projects are solving today. Think about all those talented artists that cannot break into 3D design because they cannot afford fancy computers. Imagine a kid in Lagos with incredible creativity and skill who hits a wall because rendering their work requires hardware that costs more than their entire family's monthly income. Deepin Render Network completely flips this story. They take the computing power from idle devices and puts it in the hands of the artists like such who need it. That designer in Lagos, they can now render complex 3D work on their basic laptop, paying a small fee to use other people's spare processing power. This isn't about charity, it is about unlocking talent. When you remove the hardware barrier, you find brilliant artists and talents all across the globe. Some kid in Peru might create the next Pixar level animation. A designer in Vietnam might revolutionize architectural visualization. And all of this is possible using DeepIn. Let me tell you about something that keeps me up at night, a potential crisis or a Grace 1 event that not many in the world are talking about. What happens if Nvidia faces a serious problem? Here's something big that just happened. Nomura, a massive financial company in Japan that manages over $500 billion, just warned their investors about several risks. And guess what's at the top of the list? NVIDIA. To understand why NVIDIA is becoming such a big nuisance, you need to realize something important. It's no longer just a tech company, it's basically holding up the entire US stock market single handedly right now. Sure, everyone's super bullish on AI at the moment, including me, but what happens if all these big corporations start cutting their spending, or if their growth between quarters slow down? We've already seen a glimpse of this. Nvidia stock actually went down after their recent quarterly report, even though they did much better than what was expected of them. Why? Because of the slowed growth, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the AI boom has been overstated. Even companies like BlackRock and JP Morgan are saying that the AI hype might have already peaked. And here's an even scarier scenario. What if they discover a critical security flaw in the latest chips? Then what? Every company relying on these GPUs would have to shut down their operations until NVIDIA pushes a fix. Services worldwide would go dark overnight. With Deepin, this nightmarish scenario becomes extremely unlikely. Let me tell you why. Because the computing power isn't focused on a single type of GPU, it's spread across millions of different devices and manufacturers like AMD and Intel. No single company's problems can bring down the entire system. Now, Let's talk about leverage. Right now, Nvidia can basically name their price. Imagine if tomorrow they decide to increase the cost of the chips by 20%. Companies would have no choice but to pay up or shut down. Some smaller companies or startups would literally go out of business because they could not afford the new prices. Companies are increasingly becoming reliant on Nvidia for their operations. Pinterest CEO said, "We need more GPUs like everyone, but we cannot afford them." And hence, they've started considering buying Amazon's chips just to keep up with the AI rush. Even OpenAI had to start limiting their API usage because they just couldn't get enough NVIDIA chips from Microsoft Azure. Think about that. One of the most advanced companies in the world is struggling to get more chips from the biggest AI manufacturer. It's gotten so desperate that startups are pulling every string they can find, calling in favors from investors, friends, anyone who might help them get the access to these chips. This might sound like a joke, but some of the big companies are actually forming buying groups, pooling their money together just to get a slice of Nvidia's computing power. This chaotic environment around the world is creating an AI gold rush that really shows why we need DePIN. Instead of being at the mercy of one company's supply and pricing decisions, you have access to a global marketplace of computing power. Think of it this way: would you rather have your company's future depend on NVIDIA or have the freedom to access the computing power from millions of sources worldwide? And here's another point to consider: what happens when regulations or regulators start paying attention? When one company controls 90% of the market for something as crucial as AI computing, this is bound to raise some concerns. For example, Adobe had faced similar problems in the past. DeepIn offers a natural solution. Instead of breaking up a monopoly, it creates a marketplace where everyone can participate. Now that we understand how DeepIn is shaping the future of infrastructure, let's look at some exciting projects that are making this happen right now. I'm going to walk you through 5 incredible projects that are leading this revolution. First up is my very favorite Spheron. Think of Spheron as the new age of web hosting. You know how most websites run on services like AWS or Google Cloud? Spheron is building something different, a decentralized platform that makes web hosting and storage accessible to everyone and cheaper. What makes Spheron special is how simple they made everything. It's actually easier to use than Amazon's tools, making decentralized hosting accessible and cheaper to startups and small businesses. And get this, just last week, Spheron paid out $500,000 to its providers for generating 58,000 teraflops of computing power. That's a lot of processing power being shared across their network. Now, next on our list is Akash Network. People call it the Airbnb of cloud computing, and that's pretty spot on. Akash lets users rent out unused computing power at a fraction of what traditional providers are charging. And here's something cool: Spheron and Akash actually teamed up in 2022 to create a seamless experience. While Spheron helps you with hosting your websites, Akash provides you with computing power you need. Together, they're making it super easy for users and companies to break free from centralized resources. And the results speak for themselves. Their equity token has provided a return of 800% in the last 3 years, significantly outpacing NVIDIA's market share despite NVIDIA's market dominance. We've got Dabba Network. These folks are solving a problem you probably experienced yourself: being stuck somewhere without internet access. They are focused on building last mile infrastructure for data sharing, especially in the remotest of areas. Millions of people face this issue daily because major telecom providers don't serve less populated areas as it's simply not profitable. Dabba Network steps in by helping users share their extra data with paying customers. They've already deployed about 2,000 hotspots across the country, serving about 1,500 terabytes of data. Fourth on our list is BitTensor. Now, this one's particularly interesting because it's taking aim directly at NVIDIA's market share. BitTensor is a decentralized AI network that rewards people for contributing computing power and expertise. What makes it different from Akash? Well, BitTensor is specifically designed to build and train AI models collaboratively without relying on centralized entities. They reward contributors with Tau tokens, creating a self sustaining ecosystem for AI development. Their success is pretty impressive. Their native token has quickly reached the top 50 by market cap and provided 60% returns alone in the last 1 year. Finally, let's talk about Render Network. This might be the most famous DePIN on our list, and for good reason. Render helps artists, designers, and developers access unused GPU power for rendering tasks. If you've ever worked with Photoshop or Blender, you know how time consuming rendering can be and how much it can strain your computer. What's really exciting is that Render has partnered with NVIDIA Omniverse and even got a shout out from Apple at their WWDC conference. They are planning to harness the computing power of 200 million Apple GPUs going forward. Talk about scaling up, and their performance well over 170% in the last 1 year alone. These projects aren't just experiments anymore. They are proof that DePIN is a real revolution in how we build, access, and use infrastructure. Each one is tackling a different piece of the puzzle, but together they're creating something massive, a new way of thinking about computing power. Let me tell you about a massive shift happening in the startup world that nobody's talking about. This is literally going to blow your mind. Think back to just 10 years ago. If you wanted to build a successful tech company, you needed three things: a great idea, talented developers, and some seed funding to pay your team. Pretty straightforward, am I right? But in 2024, everything's changed. And here's the crazy part: the hardware costs are now outstripping the human costs by a massive margin. Let that sink in for a moment. Today, if you're a startup founder, you can't just hire an engineering team and give them new MacBooks. You need to give them access to GPUs as well. Companies are actually spending more money on GPUs than their entire engineering team. Here's a real world example. Let's say you've got a team of 10 brilliant developers. That might cost you somewhere between 1 to 1.5 million a year, which is already a huge investment. But guess what? Just the basic GPU setup they need to work on AI is going to cost you around 2 to 3 million dollars upfront, not annually upfront. This is creating a split in the tech ecosystem right now. On one side, you've got companies with access to high end hardware racing ahead. On the other side, you've got companies being left in the dust, regardless of how talented their team is or how revolutionary their ideas might be. Let me share a real success story that perfectly shows you how DePIN is changing the game. This is the story of Brev.dev and its founder Nadir Khalil. Back in 2021, before everyone and their grandmother started building AI models, Nadir was a YouTuber turned developer who spotted a common problem every startup was facing: cloud infrastructure. He started building cloud development environment to make it easier for companies to scale. Then something unexpected happened. His customers starting asking if he could integrate GPUs also. These weren't just casual requests. These were serious AI developers facing real world problems. Nadir's team had serious experience. I'm talking about VM optimizations at Azure and cloud developments at Workday. They wanted to make using GPUs as simple as just clicking a button. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of buying a bunch of hardware and locking people into expensive contracts, Nadir wanted to make GPUs accessible and flexible and also affordable. When they faced the same issue that every other AI startup was facing, they turned to Akash Network for decentralized access. Through this collaboration, Brev could access and distribute GPU computing to its customers without paying those massive upfront costs. And guess what? Their platform became so effective at distributing computing that NVIDIA themselves took notice of it. Think about it. A kid who started making YouTube videos was able to turn his idea into reality all because he could access computing power that was previously exclusive to just big tech. And he just didn't execute the idea, he built something so valuable that the biggest company in the world wanted to own it and eventually did. This is where DePIN really becomes fascinating. All that computing power sitting idle in millions of devices worldwide, it's about to change everything. Instead of spending millions on hardware upfront, imagine tapping into a global network of computing power, paying only for what you use. That is real innovation for me. AI isn't going anywhere, but its home might be changing. While NVIDIA is building bigger factories to meet demand, the real revolution could be happening right under our noses in our phones, our laptops, and our gaming PCs. Here's what makes this moment so important. We are not just talking about making computing cheaper. We are talking about democratizing innovation itself. The next breakthrough in AI shouldn't depend on who has the hardware budget. It should come from whoever has the best ideas.
At House of Web3, we answer your house in crypto. We have a crypto concierge service where we give you a friend who you can call at any point in time to answer all your crypto doubts. Get your crypto portfolio reviewed by experts and get data-backed crypto bundles based on your risk appetite. And if you're new to crypto, we also have a Crypto for Dummies course to help you get started on crypto investing. So head over to houseofweb3.com for everything I just mentioned above. The link is in the description.
That's like the longest CT I've come across.
Okay, my bad. Here's a better one. Stay informed, stay smart with your money, and head over to House of Web3 to learn how to crypto.
Much better.